One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. Washington State Athletic Director Bill Moos is on One Question. And Bill, I want to dig into a question about how things have changed, given your lengthy tenure in college athletics at a couple different locations, back at Washington State now, of course. But I want to drill down and specifically ask you, from your time at Wazoo in the mid to late 80s raising money, and then you go to Montana for a handful of years where certainly raising money was crucial. We all generally know the Oregon story when you were there, and then now back in Pullman. I'm curious how fundraising specifically has changed in the last almost 30 years that you've been associated with college athletics, and maybe it's the frequency with which you are going after people. Maybe it's the tools you have at your disposal technology-wise. Maybe it's simply the amount of money in aggregate that people are willing to give to higher education and college athletics. But what hits you first when asked that question?
Well, it continues to be a priority in college athletics. Certainly throughout my career, it has been. I started at Washington State in my early 30s as the head fundraiser. In those days, it was just primarily me and a bunch of volunteers, some support help in the office. I look at it now, and we've got a huge staff, regional offices, which has really evolved, especially for a place like Washington State, where we're somewhat remote. We have satellite fundraising offices in Spokane, which is a major market for us, Seattle, and the Tri-Cities area. So we've really, I think, grown a tremendous amount in that regard. Another piece that has been added, since I started in the 80s, is the donor seating concept, where your level of gift will decide where you're going to sit in the various venues, primarily football and men's basketball. And that has really driven the numbers, where people wanting to have the premier seats, especially with programs that have a supply and demand for seating. We saw this at Oregon in a big regard after we got things launched and going. And we see it here at Washington State, if at a lower level, it's growing rapidly with the success of our program. So that's been a big piece. And then you factor in all of the facility enhancements that we've seen over the last 10 plus years, maybe go back 20, that are primarily funded with private and corporate support, and the arms race that people talk about and so forth. So much of that is being driven by individual contributions, naming opportunities for anything from a football stadium to a basketball court to a baseball clubhouse. All of this has really emerged through those years as well. So in the other part is endowments and deferred gifts, trusts, etc. Those have grown on the prospects of having people look at that option to support an athletic program. So really from the days where in the 80s I got in my car and drove all over the Pacific Northwest to have a phone-a-thon with some volunteers, go through the pledge cards hoping for a $100 annual gift to help support scholarships, to all the things I just described. It's grown in leaps and bounds.
What is the first gift you can recall in your fundraising career where it was just such a massive win that you were beside yourself? Was it at Washington State in your first tenure, and do you recall maybe how much it was for, what it was earmarked for?
Well, I do remember, Matt, I think it was in my second year that we hit the $1 million mark in annual giving. And when you put that in context, that the entire budget was probably around 10 million, that was a big milestone. When we got to Montana, we did some major facility improvements, and to get a $20,000 or $25,000 gift at that time at the University of Montana was quite significant. Oregon, we kicked it into another gear. With really, when we arrived, there was $1 million donor in 1995, and by the time I left in 2007, I think we were at 18 or 19, and raised almost $200 million for facility improvements, and all of that primarily from private gifts.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.